This is a story that many of you probably don't know about, and it's a concern because this could spread to other schools in Michigan. We're talking about this union contract, but Michelle is joining me. A parent. You have a child in the Troy School District. Tell me a little bit about your background because you've had some issues with the schools before, and you're a parent who wants to see your child succeed, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a parent of a second grader. My daughter has dyslexia, which is a protected learning disability. And I'm also a former educator myself. I taught fourth and fifth grade for a number of years. So yeah, I've been having issues with the school district. Last year, I requested an observation of the classroom to see how my daughter was being supported with her learning disability and in a small reading group. Finally, the school district did let me observe last year for a period of 30 minutes. It took about 6 weeks for them to be able to allow that. So,
Wait, hold on. So you couldn't just say, principal, teacher, I want to go in and observe, and they didn't like set something up right away?
no, I kept receiving emails stalling, giving me different reasons. And so finally, after I think it was almost 6 weeks, it was between 4 and 6 weeks, I was able to set up a 30-minute time frame. And I went in with the principal where I was able to observe a small group reading lesson. And reading was my focus again because of my daughter's learning disability and the curriculum the Troy district was using.
So it took you wanted to just observe in the classroom. You didn't want to, you just wanted to sit in the back and observe what was happening. And you didn't want to speak. You didn't want to talk to the kids. It took you 6 weeks to get the school district to agree.
Yeah. And it was so shocking for me as a former educator, one, because I always encourage parents to participate. Parents are partners in their child's education. And two, because I had already had a background check, I had already been cleared as a volunteer. So I couldn't understand what the barrier was. And also, Michigan Law Code does support parent observations. So I also called into question whether they were being legally compliant by, stalling and all of that last year.
I mean, I understand you can't have 20 parents in the room
Oh,
at
yeah,
one
for
time.
sure.
So that's where, I mean, I think everyone would understand. Okay, well, hey, you can come in tomorrow, and then Billy's mom could come in the next day or
Yeah.
something like that. But it sounds like that's not what this was really about.
No. And again, the Troy School District was using a curriculum, or is using a curriculum that has been called into question. There's actually a lawsuit in Massachusetts because of the curriculum that they're using. So again, it raised many questions for me as a former educator and as a parent wanting to ensure the success of my daughter and her reading abilities and how she's being supported in the classroom. Again, I wasn't there to question what the teacher was doing or her teaching style. I was just strictly there to see how my daughter was being supported, how she might be interacting with the teacher, and all those kinds of things.
Okay, so you eventually got in for what, 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and
Yes, exactly.
wow. So for people who don't know, most public school teachers, they're in a union, and there's union contracts that talk about a lot of different stuff. And the Troy School District, they just approved a new contract.
Yes, actually, the contract I think may have been approved. It was still undergoing some edits back in June, but it was just released yesterday. So months later, they decided to release it.
And there's, as far as you know, changes. Are there changes to the parent observation part of it?
So in our student handbook, previously parents were allowed to come in to observe students once per marking period. Now it's currently up to once per year per our student handbook at our elementary school. And then with the teacher contract, I just noticed some concerning things. The first part is, I think I may have sent you this, where it says that administrators should actively discourage parent participation or parent observations.
I have it up. I have it up on the screen. I'll leave this up on the screen right here. All
Yeah,
of you watching at home, yeah, all of you watching at home, if you're a parent, this is hard to believe,
it
really,
is.
that so this is actually in the union contract. It says, given the learning disruption caused by classroom visits, Troy School District Administration shall actively discourage this practice. Now, like I said, they could probably point to the fact, well, you can't have 15 parents in a room, and you can't have like a parent yelling and screaming in the room.
Of
That doesn't,
course. Yeah.
but to say something as blanket as discouraging that, you're basically discouraging parent involvement.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's especially important because my daughter has a learning disability and it's a protective learning disability. So again, I think it's important, especially for parents of students that have learning disabilities. I mean, any parent really, to be able to see how their child's being supported and feel that they're being involved in the process as a parent, right? So it's like having these types of contracts. Again, I mean, is this legitimate and legal? Again, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. And then two, is it good practice? Probably not. Probably doesn't encourage parental involvement by using that type of verbiage.
No, and definitely not a presumption of goodwill. It just
Exactly.
it automatically creates a friction. Let me look here at the others. So all these things that we're looking at on the screen are all related to this issue, it looks like.
Yeah, and so I did ask actually, I did ask this year to come and observe my daughter's class, and I was denied. I was not allowed to visit the classroom to observe my daughter in a small group reading lesson this year.
So let me go over some of these. It says only parental legal guardians shall be permitted. Okay, I get that. Um, a maximum of two parents. Okay. And then this one here is crazy. A written rationale for the classroom visit shall be provided to the impacted teacher, educator at least 72 hours in advance. It shouldn't be any of their business why you want to be there. You want to be there because you want to be there.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And just as like a professional courtesy and being a former educator, I did provide that to them. It's
Oh.
still again this year. I explained my rationale. My daughter has the disability. I want to see how she's being supported. And again, even though they do have these rules, I was still denied this year the ability to come into the classroom and observe my daughter.
Wow. It says here the building administrator shall accompany the parent. Okay, I guess I get that. In the event the classroom visit becomes disruptive, I mean that makes sense. You can't have anyone in there.
Yeah,
But then again, that could be subjective too.
it could be.
If they think you're looking a certain way, is that disruptive? I know how that
I agree. Oh, I 100% agree with you. And the other thing is provided a rationale. So it's like, I might think that's a rational reason to visit the classroom. However, is the teacher going to think that's a rational reason? Is the principal or administrator going to think that's a rational reason? In
no,
my case, they did not.
no, that's ridiculous. You're the parent. What else do we have here? Unless agreed by both building administration, will not exceed 30 minutes. And then it goes on. I can't believe they have all of this written out for that. But teacher contracts are very intense. Or team contract. It says shall not be permitted to record, including video and or sound. I mean, it's not like you wouldn't. If you did, you wouldn't be using this to put it out publicly because I know you can't record children that aren't yours and that sort.
Exactly. Yeah, and I did not. So again, I'm not sure. I never spoke publicly about my experience last year. I never shared any of my notes that I took, if I did take any. So it was again like really shocking to me. One, that they would come out with this type of contract this year, and that the school board at Troy and the administrators would find it acceptable. And two, that they would find it acceptable to deny a parent the ability to observe their child in the classroom.
Okay. To minimize disruptions, electronic devices shall not be permitted. This is the one, and I'm a journalist. But I'm giving my opinion on this one. The parent or legal guardian shall not be permitted to take written notes during the classroom visit. That is complete and utter garbage.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Why can't you? Why couldn't you sit there with a notepad and just write down stuff? I don't understand.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially if you're trying to recall, what happened, maybe take notes about what my child was doing or how she was responding to a particular skill or, objective that the teacher was presenting to a child. I do think that's valid. Yeah, definitely a parent should be able to take notes.
And the purpose of the classroom visit shall not be disciplinary in nature. What does that even mean?
Again, I have no idea. I don't know if it means disciplinary, like in case the teacher does something that would be like, I guess, in violation of their contract or handbook. I don't know. I found that odd. Yeah, I couldn't understand that verbiage.
I mean, you are a taxpayer,
Exactly.
and the public school employees, teachers, you do pay their salaries. So in essence, they're working for you. Um, so what is your take? I'm just shaking my head as a parent because as a parent, I would presume goodwill, but I'd also want to be able to observe what's going on. What's your whole take on it's just it does, people are probably watching this just saying it doesn't make sense.
So yeah, I was kind of shocked, but although since my visit was denied before I asked in the fall this year, I did actually suspect that there was some verbiage in the teacher contract that prevented me from visiting, although there shouldn't have been because I have not visited this year. So again, this is a new school year. I have not visited. My daughter has a different skill set. I presented a valid reason. My daughter has a learning disability. I wanted to see how she's being supported. I've never been disruptive to the school. In fact, I volunteer weekly at the school in the lunchroom. So again, it's not like I'm a stranger and I'm just coming in. And the other thing is that was interesting to me. So the school mentioned disruption, but it was interesting because they actually allowed the curriculum company to host a paid workshop last year where they allowed just, random people that were signing up for the workshop to come into the schools. And I don't know if they asked parents permission or what happened exactly. But the disruption part, to me, that's invalid because that's what they allowed last year. They allowed workshop attendees to come into the classrooms. So to not allow parents, I mean, that's just mind blowing to me.
Did they give you a so you wanted to go observe your child in a classroom and they said no again?
They said no. Yeah. So first they reached out to the principal locally, just said, okay, well, I'm going to reach out to the principal first. I've expressed my concerns. We've had several email exchanges back and forth, voicing my concerns with my daughter's ability to read and the methods and interventions that are being used to support her because they're not supported by the Michigan Department of Education, Michigan Dyslexia Handbook, all of these reasons. I could go on and on. There's a lawsuit. So yeah, so I did ask to come in. Again, my principal told me no. So I thought, you know what? Again, I cited the law code, reached out to the superintendent of the Troy School District and assistant superintendent of elementary education and was told the same thing, that they support the principal's decision and that I should have more conversations and meet with the principal.
Did they say why you weren't allowed to go to observe it?
The principal told me that I had observed my daughter last year and that I would be seeing the same thing, basically. And so it's like, it's not really the same thing. It's a new school year. Children develop and grow at different rates. They have new skill sets. And as a teacher, I'm cognizant of this. And again, I mean, it is my right as a parent to do this, right? I mean, it's a courtesy that I've given you all these emails. We've had these exchanges back and forth. And I think there are also federal disability laws under the IDA laws that also support parent involvement and participation.
Yeah. So you are a parent. You would like to go observe your child in a classroom, and the school district says no.
Yeah, blank. Yeah, they a couple paragraphs of basically from the principal, you saw your daughter last year, you're going to be seeing the same thing. No. And then again, I escalated it, as I felt I should have. No, I didn't take it to the school board, which is something that I may decide to do, and I decide to speak at the school board and again, bring my concern to them because I feel that they're out of compliance with the Michigan law. But yeah.
Do you think it's personal? Because I know you've spoken out before. Do you think they're targeting you?
I mean, I do feel like I can't say that for certain because I'm not, speaking for them, but I do feel like at this point it could potentially be personal because I have gone to the media about different things. I'd hosted a rally, gone to the news stations about the reading curriculum that they're using. And I have been very vocal about my concerns because I feel it's important to advocate as a parent for children.
But none of this would have happened if literally they would have just said, okay, well, let's work on a day and a time and we'll get you in within a week. Everything would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a week, and I'm totally flexible. Like, I've never been disruptive at the school, never had any issues with any of the staff. I'm always professional in my interactions, polite, courteous. And again, last year I just sat in the back of the classroom. Maybe I took some notes. I can't remember, to be quite honest, but that was it. And when the time was up, we left the room.
Yeah. So this is a new union contract and most of the districts have unions. Is there a concern, and I've talked to several other people in this policy world, that union contracts like this could spread across the state?
It is a big concern for me. One, it's a concern, like, are we representing the best interests of the students and the community members by, writing things like this into the contract, right? Because we're supposed to be representing everyone in the community. So while I understand it's a teacher contract, I mean, all of the parties agreed to the contract. It took months to come to this agreement. So that means the superintendent, the school board, and everybody came to agreement with this contract. And I don't feel that's in the best interest of the students or the community members when things like this are written into the contract.
Yeah, because a lot of districts will copy other. Whoa, look at that! Like, what are you doing in that district? What are you doing there?
Exactly. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah. So what? Let's say I lived in Nebraska and I moved to Michigan, and I looked at this and I'm like, oh, this isn't very welcoming. What message does this send to any parent?
So to me, I mean, reading the contract and stuff, it does not send a message of we view it, you as a partner, which they should, right? Because I'm the parent and I'm ultimately responsible for my child's education and all of that. So yeah, it made me feel, and all of those things made me feel unwelcome. Just denying me to be in the classroom, denying my ability to participate. All of that again made me feel very unwelcome, and it's just shameful that they're allowed to do that.
Now, many would say that this type of behavior on their part is a commercial for homeschooling because a lot of people cannot do that, though, homeschooling, but it starts to get people thinking. And I know we've had, especially since COVID, a lot of kids leave public school, but this is an example of something that does not help the public school system's image. I got.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you mentioned that. So that was one of the options that we considered for our daughter. We visited several Catholic schools last year, and actually they were very welcoming, allowing my daughter to spend the day there, allowing me to come into the classroom just on a random day and watch lessons and stuff that their teachers were performing. And again, I wasn't someone that had my child wasn't even enrolled there. So I was really impressed with their willingness and ability to accommodate someone who might want to potentially send their child there and just having not an open door policy, but again, more welcoming to parents. But ultimately, the school that we liked best for our daughter did not have ability to accept her, and her grade level, they were full. So it's still an option that we might reconsider at this point, especially with the way things are going.
One example, and I know you've heard of it, school choice. Michigan has it, but they do not have it. Like, for example, in the state of Florida, the money goes with the child. So let's say your child goes to a Catholic school, the money they would get in the public school would go to the Catholic school. So what's happening in Florida, all the schools are competing and they're being held accountable. So it seems like the public schools in Michigan maybe need a little bit of accountability.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so I came from a state that actually does. So I taught in a state that actually does allow that. So I taught in Arizona for a number of years.
Oh, wow.
And so in Arizona, I still have a lot of friends there that teach in Arizona and send their kids to school in Arizona. And they do have a similar method where they allow school of choice with vouchers. And so I do think that it has made things more competitive. And the fact that, you have to provide kids with a quality education, work with parents and do all of those things. And interestingly, like as a public educator, I was never one for vouchers, but now I do. Like I absolutely, um, I absolutely see how that might be an option for people, and it might be the best option, especially if you have a child that has a learning disability and your needs are not being met.
For the old days, I'm 49 years old, but growing up, you were like, you lived where you lived, you went to school. So the schools probably thought, hey, those are our students. We got them. They're not going to leave. And maybe a lot of Michigan seems like behind the times and the way of thinking. But yeah, if Troy knew that hundreds and hundreds of kids would leave, maybe they would step it up a little.
Yeah, and actually we do. We are seeing some students go to private schools. Now there's a homeschool pod in Troy, and then also we have a nearby district that's offering a school for gifted kids. So they're losing some students to that school. So again, I think this is an opportunity for improvement, an opportunity to involve parents, and just something that parents all over the state and the country need to be aware of. Look at your teacher contracts, contact your schools. What is their policy? What is their stance on this?
Yeah, well, you are brave to speak out. I know others have, and I really appreciate it because the more that this comes out, maybe the more that lawmakers and administrations and even teachers unions will agree that maybe transparency, something needs to change because if this sort of thing continues and kids continue to leave, they're only hurting themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So where do you stand right now? I guess you just hope for the best, or school board, maybe the school board. I don't know the makeup of the school board. I don't know if they have a new election, but what's your next step?
Yeah, so I mean, that is probably. I was kind of thinking about. I'll take the next couple weeks and decide what I'm going to do. I'll possibly send another request. I just don't know at this point. Or is it best to just kind of count my losses and move on and look for a private school for my daughter at this point? But then she's really against that option. So
Yeah.
it's like it's such a hard decision as a parent to make. You want what's best for your child, and you
And
hope that your school wants the same thing.
you would think. And then I ask, is there any legal action? But that is very expensive. I know.
It is. And at that point, I would just remove my daughter from the school and send her to private school at that point. But again, parents shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't be forced to make those decisions.
Ah, exactly. It just seems like common sense.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Yes.
And keep me updated on everything, because
Absolutely.
you're brave to do this. My dad, he's passed away now, but I remember back in the day, he stood up, and my sister didn't like it, but he stood up for an issue and he was brave to do it. And it actually, in the Detroit area, there was some change in busing and why he stood up at a meeting, and he embarrassed my sister, but he stood up and spoke about it. So it's people like you, I think, that are making a difference.
Thank you for having me on today. And hope you have a nice holiday day. Thank you.